Yesterday it was mentioned that you start to build the menu very far in advance. How helpful is this to you on the day?
It's extremely helpful actually, because it's really important on the day that we get the dishes right, and by working so far in advance it gives us every opportunity to iron out any problems with the dishes, that we can get them absolutely perfect on the day.
And then how do you come up with the ideas for the food that you're going to prepare or make on the night?
We're given the brief is to make it British. So it's working with British produce. Ideally we like to keep it really seasonal. So it's really working with those sort of dishes and understanding the menu needs to follow a certain, it needs to be a grand meal, so to speak, like a fine dining experience almost. So we build the dishes around that, and we come up with, it might be a beef, a lamb, a guinea fowl, venison, for argument's sake, salmon, crab, those sort of ingredients, and then coming up with an interesting menu.
And what are some of the problems that you face when coming up with the menu?
I think, to be honest, the biggest problem is having done it for 5 years now, with the volume that we're cooking for, in order to make the dishes look really great, for me, I always try to keep it simple and do it well. And in doing that, it begins to limit slightly what you can do. So so for me, that's the challenge, is coming up with something exciting each year that's different from the previous year, but making sure that it works, that we can send out a decent event.
Excellent. Does this mean there is huge pressure when you're preparing for a night like this, or now that you've done it so often, is it an easy process?
Easy is probably the wrong word. Everything's tried and tested. You always get a little bit of nerves because you want it to go well, but there's a great team behind me that helps produce it all and work on the dinner. So it's having great trust in the team, everybody pulling together. So that takes a lot of the pressure off.
Right. And then, out of the dishes which you've prepared for the menu, which is your favourite, or the one you may be most proud of?
I think my favourite dish is actually the main course, the beef. But I think it's nice to do using 3 different cuts of beef. I think it's interesting rather than just having a piece of meat, for argument's sake. So I think that's also it's a challenge within the preparation for that number as well.
Okay, great. And then many people are starting to host their own dinner parties nowadays. What tips would you give them in the kitchen to help prepare them?
I would say don't try anything new that you haven't tried on the family before. And as I said earlier, for me, cooking is really all about keeping it simple and doing it well, and then using great produce, buying the best ingredients that you can afford to buy, and just treating them with respect and cooking them perfectly. And I think you always have a great meal.
Right. And have you started to think of any ideas for next year's ceremony?
No. Not at all.
Shocking if you had Mr. Prepared.
Yeah, God, that'd be really well prepared, wouldn't it? After 2 years in advance.
Finally, out of all the years in which you've served / created the food for the ceremony, what was your favourite dish and why, and would it ever make a comeback?
I think in a way my favourite dish was, I think it was either last year or the year before, where it was a variation on the beef actually, and as a dish here, in my time here we've sort of developed the menus and moved them further ahead each year, so we tried to be a bit more daring, and it was the first time that we've really done a duo, so using a braised shoulder of lamb and doing a shepherd's pie with a loin of lamb, and whilst in itself it was quite simple, for the team it was something very different, because as I say, it used to be a piece of chicken or a piece of beef, and that was it. So it was sort of each year you push the brigade that little bit further in what we're doing. So when I started here, for argument's sake, everything, not BAFTA, but everything was silver service for the main course. So now it's all plated, and it was, as each year, like I say, you sort of try to be more creative, push the team a bit harder on what they're doing. So I think that's the favourite really.